guys? My name is Tim Roswick, and today we're talking about rapid digital prototyping and why it's important and how it can kind of help you improve your games and kind of how to do it when you want to improve your games and you want to do these things. So first of all, I want to talk about why it's important and what it is and then why it's important. We'll get into that in a little bit because we have some beginners here that may have not always heard about an MVP, which stands for minimum viable product from the startup world. And those sorts of concepts. And basically the idea is that you want to build the minimum thing that you can build to kind of show off the game that you want to make. So if you're making a platformer, maybe it's a cube that runs and jumps, right? Maybe that's just like the prototype, the super small little piece of it. It might be more than that though. Like if you want to build a really artistic based story-driven platformer, you might have to build a little bit of the art. You might have to create what we call a vertical slice, which is basically everything, basically like a small section of the game that feels complete to where it kind of feels like the end game will there. Like it really depends on what you're trying to do. But a prototype, the purpose of a prototype is just to demonstrate the validity of an idea. So for a game, you want to show that this game is entertaining or this game is fun as early as you possibly can. Because if it's fun when you're running around with cubes, jumping on walls, it's probably going to be fun when it's fully animated and fully immersive into a whole world, right? So the reason why this is important is because a lot of people get stuck in the game that they want to make. And they go and they dive in, they try and build this game that they have in their head or the game that they dreamed about or, the game that they wanted to make when they were a little kid. And they try and make this whole game, but then they get lost in this sea of like, oh my God, there's so much shit to do. There's so much stuff to do. And they keep adding stuff and they keep adding features and they never actually test and see if their prototype is fun. Because a lot of people don't ever start and build the prototype in the first place. So the importance of a prototype, I think, goes beyond just proving yourself it's fun. I think you can show it to other people. It's a good way to show off unique mechanics, especially in indie games. A lot of indie games are popular for really unique, crazy off-the-wall mechanics. And a good way to show that off is to just build a small little prototype of it that you can show to friends or you can show to different people and get their take on it. And what I've found for me personally is that it's really useful to build a whole bunch of different prototypes of different random stuff and then figure out which one you like the best and go with that and make a game. My game Phylophobia actually started as a prototype. If you've been following my Finish Friday stuff, you know that I once a week for 8 weeks I finish an old project on my hard drive. And the reason why I started Finish Friday was because I had all these prototypes sitting on my hard drive. Now I actually finished 8 games, but I probably had 100 prototypes on my hard drive. And, out of all of those, even the 100 prototypes, even the 8 games that I made, Phylophobia was my favorite. So out of 100 different projects that I started that I prototyped out, I found one that I liked so much to develop into a full game. And as you know, I'm working on that now. That's my big project. That's my full-time thing. And that's, I think, the power of prototyping. If I can really explain it and kind of ingrain it down to one little detail, is that you really find something. I have a video about this, but basically it's easier to discover fun than it is to design it sometimes. So, you might think something will be fun, but then when you get it on paper or get it actually in the computer, it doesn't work the way you thought it would. But sometimes if you build a bunch of different stuff, you just build every little idea you have in your head and you keep it small enough to where it's a prototype, right? Where it takes a couple of days or a week or something like that, sometimes a couple hours in Construct 2, you have that prototype, you have that kind of proof of concept, if you will, and then you can kind of build on from that later on if you want to go with it. But I find that it's really effective to build a bunch of them, figure out which one I like the best, and then carry that into a full game. And I think this has a lot of effects on not just making sure that you're working on the right concept, right? Because that's really important. Making the right game is just as important as making the game right. And a lot of people, they may learn how to code. They may learn how to do all this art. They learn how to do all the sound. They learn all these details, but they end up working on the wrong game, right? And a game can be wrong for a lot of different reasons. Like maybe it's not fun. Maybe it's not entertaining. Maybe it's the wrong project for you to work on your current skill set. Maybe you're not quite ready for the project, right? Like maybe the market's just too saturated, and it's not something that's viable if you're into, you know, actually making money off your games. You're not just making it for a hobby. So there are a lot of different things to consider, and I feel like prototypes kind of help you wean out what is good and what is bad, and because you can tell then, right? Like if you describe to your friend, hey, I have this idea for a game, it's going to be a RPG FPS hybrid, right? They could think all kinds of stuff. They could think anywhere from Borderlands 2 to Destiny to, like, you know, there's a whole bunch of different things they can end up, because execution is what matters. And that's why a prototype is important, because if you build it and you can show them, hey, this is what I want to build, this right here, you don't have to like rely on their imagination, which I promise you is going to be a different version than what you have in your mind. So it kind of helps to show, you know, especially if you're working with a team, prototyping is extremely important, because you have to kind of show them what you're working on, and you have to be able to show your ideas, because telling someone an idea is not good enough for a team whatsoever. So I just wanted to kind of share what prototyping is, why it's important, and why I think you should do it. I want to say that there are tools that I think are more geared toward prototyping, and they work better for prototyping. So for me personally, I like to make 2D games, and I find that Construct 2 is really powerful for prototyping very rapidly. Because of the way that the engine works, I can drag a platformer behavior on an object, and I already have running and jumping moving, and I can go ahead and tweak stuff like that. So things like that are extremely valuable, especially in like a game jam type of setting. But especially for prototyping, I feel like you want to make it as quick and as simple and as dirty as possible to just kind of get the idea off the ground. You don't want to spend a bunch of time polishing. You don't want to spend a bunch of time tweaking stuff. You want to just get the basic idea in front of you in a playable form, so that you can show other people and kind of communicate what the game is about. So I don't want you to get lost in all the details. The vertical slice thing, I think, comes into play with the MVP, and I think that's after the prototype. So maybe it's not something I should have brought up in this video, because I feel like prototyping is just the bare bones of what you're trying to create. But it's definitely important as well. Maybe I'll make another video on that later. But once you get the prototype, once you get the basic playability down, once you get the basic mechanics, maybe a level or 2 levels, something like super small where you can just show somebody, this is going to be the base of the game. This is going to be the basic game loop. This is going to be what basically players do over and over again. Once you got that down, you got a prototype down, you can show it to people and you can tweak. And I can tell you, it is going to be significantly easier for you to tweak your prototype than it will be to tweak a full game based on those same rules. Okay, you don't want to start tweaking stuff later on after you built levels or after you built entire systems around the game. So get the prototype right and then build the full game. That's my message for today. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please leave me a like and a comment down below. Do you have anything to add to this? Do you have any kind of questions? Do you have any comments? You ever built prototypes? What kind of prototypes did you build? How many prototypes do you go through before you find a game you like? Leave all that stuff down below, because I love to hear from you guys. Once again, my name is Tim Roswick, and I will see you again tomorrow.